Welcome, everyone. Erik Roth, integral astrologer here. Talk about the upcoming month of September 2026. So, this is an outlook or a forecast. This is episode 88 of Signs, Planets, and Stellar Rhythms. And I'm looking forward to taking you on a little journey through the month of September and all the different things that are happening in this month. This month isn't quite as powerfully expressed as previous months this year. This is it's not without its powerful alignments, but relative to the sheer amount of aspects that have been happening in prior months in 2026, this one kind of rates a little bit on the lower end of the scale. But it is definitely worth talking about, and there's definitely some notable things that are coming up, particularly on the very first day of September with the Mars-Saturn square. And we've got Equinox, we have retrograde happening, and we have some planets changing signs all on the same day as the new moon. So lots to look forward to here. Let's begin this journey through September and see what is in store for us. Okay, so these are the major episode highlights. We've got the Mars-Saturn square. We've got the Sun moving into Libra, our autumnal equinox here in the Northern Hemisphere, vernal equinox in the Southern Hemisphere. Mercury will be changing signs twice, once into Libra and also to Scorpio at the end of the month. Chiron, after her 3-month sojourn in the sign of Taurus, is moving back into Aries. We have the star Regulus rising. Last month, we were highlighting the star Sirius for the month of August, and this month we're highlighting the star Regulus. Venus will be going into Scorpio, and this is going to mark the beginning of a really long journey through Scorpio and Libra. Mars into Leo at the end of the month. That's another long journey in Leo too. So these are kind of seeding some really important periods that are going to be in force for several months. I mentioned there's a retrograde happening. Uranus will be retrograde, and of course, the new and full moons taking place. But we're moving out of the eclipse season. As of this recording, we're 2 days away from the August 27th lunar eclipse. But September will be the end of that. There's no eclipses in September, and the next eclipse season won't happen until February of 2027. All right, so other planets, looking at the outer planets for September, just to kind of run down, Pluto won't move very fast. It's actually not too far away from stationing direct in the fall. So it only moves from 330 to 307 Aquarius. Eris, of course, is really a very, very slow moving planet. So it's barely moving in the 25-degree range of Aries. Chiron, as I previously mentioned, is going to move into Aries beginning September. Actually, September should be September 19th, not the 17th. It goes all the way back to 29-28 Aries. Jupiter starting at 1345 Leo and moves to 1938 Leo. So it's really making some incredible headway. 6 more degrees moving forward there in Leo. Saturn will be moving into, I'm sorry, continuing its retrograde in Aries, going back 2 degrees from 13 to 11. Neptune still also retrograding from 339 to 251, and Uranus, it stalls out, it stations retrograde, and then it ends the month at 531 Gemini. So that's something to look at. This Uranus is going to be at a standstill for this month. Actually, I just checked that Chiron it's on September 17th, not to 19th. So just as a correction to what I previously said about Chiron moving into Taurus, I'm sorry, moving into Aries, it's on the 17th, not the 19th. All right. So just to circle back to what I was talking about here. Uranus is really at a standstill this month. It barely moves, so it's going to be really prominently featured, and just that's mean it's going to be moving more into that space where we're going to be really able to connect with that planet more strongly and review of what has already gone on as Uranus has moved back into Gemini in April of this year, all the way until September, and then now it's retrograding. So this is like really deeply moving into that sign, now coming back out of that. And I'm going to talk more about that when I get to that topic here. All right, so I wanted to review before September 1st. We have August 31st. We have a Jupiter and Saturn trine, and this is going to play a role in the Mars-Saturn square. So Mars, of course, is going to be in the sign of Cancer. But we've got this fire trine going on, the first of three fire trines. There was almost one water trine in November of 2025, but it didn't quite get exact, but it certainly the energy was there. So it's going to be coming in then April 3rd and July 11th. We'll have two other fire trines before the 2029-31 period where we'll have a series of five oppositions. But this fire trine helps, I would say, stabilize a little bit, also encourage more growth and expansion, but in a practical manner. It's not just creative and gung-ho going all for it. But Saturn brings in an easy flow of energy to really create what we need, but while still maintaining understanding what resources are available and to use them in a practical manner, constructive manner. So that's what the Jupiter and Saturn trine are about. And it's also pointing to, particularly with Jupiter in Leo, uh, s- pointing to a theme of new leaders coming into form, rising into consciousness. We've already seen some of this take place this year, but I feel like more is on the way, not just necessarily in here in the US. We've got the midterms where there's politics is being continually, you know, I don't know, not reinvented is not the right word, renewed, restarted, new ideas, new people, all of that. But I think around the world as well, some new ideas and new leaders and are just probably getting started in this. So it may not that they show up and everything's, they become the most popular person, but I feel like those initial seeds of that are really starting to come into form during this time in the Jupiter Leo transit, but with Saturn's help in the trines, which will happen again in April and in July of 2027 after this August 31st date. Okay, so I mentioned how there was the um, Mars-Saturn square and how that's playing a role here. So you can see in this relationship. There's the yellow line here is the trine between Saturn and Jupiter. But we also have Mars here, squaring, Mars in Cancer squaring Saturn. Um, so the square is, we can think of this as an opening turn of this relationship between uh, Saturn and Mars. It conveys a period of tension or stress to take action while meeting strong resistance to that. Um, it's something that really stuck with me when I heard a conversation or discussion about Saturn Mars when they had the conjunction earlier this year back in I believe it was the springtime or early springtime of this year. Astrologers Chris Brennan and Austin Coppock, they talked about the aspect of this relationship between Mars and Saturn akin to pressing on the accelerator and the brake pedals at the same time. Because Mars really wants to go and create and take action and fulfill its mission. It's very instinctual. It doesn't slow down. And Saturn tends to want to take its time and look at the landscape and see what resources and what things it needs in order to build something. And so it tends to put things on pause and put limits on things so that we can figure out what needs to really grow, what things need to be put into motion. So the clash of that can create some instabilities, but it can also create an opportunity for things to actually find a way to work together. So there is that alchemy that can happen. But in a square, it's tension. So some decision point needs to be made there. And for those that have any Aries or Cancer energy in the middle degrees, or even Libra or Capricorn, you're definitely at the effect of this particular square here. Then on September 7th, we have uh, Regulus rising. And Regulus is a prominent star because it sits right on the ecliptic, and it's known as the heart of the lion. And so it's been seen in the evening sky for most of the year, and then it disappeared in the glare. It's already as of this recording, it's still in the glare of the sun right now. But the star will move into the early morning sky as of September 7th. It sits at 0 degrees Virgo, and it ingressed into that sign back in November 2011. And it's a star that was looked at by astrologer Dean Brajar as one of the factors that we are moving into the age of Aquarius, because it moved into that sign of Leo back in over 2,000 years ago, around 157 BC. And that was the time of what we call the age of Pisces. And again, that's there are other names we could use for this, but that's, the related to some degree the constellation of this. So it's a whole nother topic, but I wanted to bring in that Regulus is a really important star in relation to looking at the humanity's ages. And in about 4,300 years ago, Regulus did mark the June solstice, and was part of the four corners or four directions of the Earth that included the stars Fomalhaut, Antares, and Aldebaran. And you could also use Pleiades around that too. So when we see this star, we are also looking into the past and the future simultaneously when it comes to ages. Some of these other stars you can certainly connect into that wavelength as well, but Regulus has definitely been a powerfully important star in humanity's history and our energetic and mythological and other things that were tuned into it, because one of the most notable ones was that it was a star along with the constellation of the Lion that was the main inspiration and energetic transmission that came down to the ancient Egyptians to build the Sphinx. So that's a whole other topic, but I wanted to connect those dots there because it's really important there, along with in the modern times what we think of as the Lion's Gate as well. There's Mercury moves into Libra on September 10th. There's actually four things that happen on September 10th, and Mercury in Libra is just one of them. So it emphasizes the qualities of the Virgo mind, perceptions and communication expressions. It's about relationships in our lives, both on a personal and collective level. The Libra mind perceives the personalness of those relationships, prioritizing connections and with others and maintaining the relationships. So it really can see where the compromises and negotiations can be engaged while understanding the needs of others. So it's trying to achieve that balance between people and their needs, including to some degree themselves. Although Libra tends to put the other person in most cases first above them. And so Libra typically does not initiate much, but can learn to develop a relationship with themselves, thereby learning how to make decisions and know their own soul's treasures. So Mercury will be in Libra for about 20 days until September 30th, and then it'll move into the sign of Scorpio on that day, that's the last day of September there. Also on September 10th, we have a Virgo new moon. And you can see it's in sextile to Mars and Cancer. So just after Mars and Cancer squared Saturn here back on September 1st, 9 days later, it's sextiling the new moon. So this deals with sacred patterns and service. The new moon happens at 1825 Virgo at 8:26 p.m. Pacific time. So this really is the Virgo mind is and the Virgo expression, archetypal expression. This to me, anytime we get to a Virgo moon, which is definitely connected into more of the sort of the harvest energy and the energy of connected to the Mother Earth and her own cycles. It's really a very strong Earth type of new moon and helping us understand what our relationship is with that and our own patterns in personal patterns in relationship and collective patterns in a relationship to the Earth. This is a new moon that helps us connect into all of that I just shared. So, we can think of what in our lives, what patterns do we need to shift, that might not be healthy for us? What patterns may be more supported that helps us with our life purpose, that helps us connect into what our soul's intent is in this lifetime. And so that's what Virgo can help us understand and to look at the details of it all. And then how can we utilize uh, those new emerging patterns and that are supportive to help and be of service to humanity. So that's kind of the Virgo new moon and how we all can connect with that. And the Mars energy in the sextile, it can help us take more action in that. It can help us, especially in the Cancer, help us have more compassion for where it's needed and to understand what our responsibilities are around that. It's not just about going for it and ignoring other things that accept our mission and purpose, but actually utilizing our heart space as well. So Mars helps us connect into that because of its current position in Cancer. So the Sabian symbol of this new moon is a swimming race. So this is can be interpreted as paying attention to the details of all the training we have undertaken, so the gifts and skills we've learned to compete either in a race or to compete in life. Are we competing with ourselves? We can look at that competition as a metaphor, as an example of looking at our lives. So it can reveal something about, the water energy or our emotions, the medium of our feelings. It can lead to about what can we exercise around our feelings to achieve a particular goal. And, how do we a part of one's identity in front of others? So as we're maybe utilizing our skills, not swimming is just a metaphoric expression here. How are other people seeing us in how we are doing it? And is it coming from a place of service? Is it coming from a place of being of help to the community and even to our own life journey? Or is it something that is more egoic or more, coming from a place of fear and sense of, exercising and repeating patterns around our wounds? So that's something we can take a look at and see in this particular new moon and this Sabian symbol of the new moon. The third thing that happens on September 10th is that Venus moves into Scorpio, and it will be there for some months. It moves into Scorpio on September 10th, moves out of Scorpio on October 25th, and then moves back into Scorpio on December 4th. And it's because Venus will be going through its retrograde period about every 19 months. It does this. So Venus in Scorpio highlights our will and our relationship with power, control, and magic. There is a greater depth of energy in Venus and Scorpio, evoking imagery of the goddess Hecate, Ereshkigal, Pele, and other archetypes of the shaman and sorceress. At its highest level, Venus and Scorpio can reveal what was once hidden and be a turn on for our passions and desires in the middle of the world. But it can also be a catalyst for the shadow around us as well. So something to learn about within ourselves and what shadows have come out during this time. Because what was interesting, the last time that Venus had this back and forth between Scorpio and Libra was 8 years ago during this last incarnation, because it's moving toward building into an entirely new synodic cycle, and was in 2018. And that was during the Me Too movement. And in the US, that was also during a midterm, and it showed really powerful rise of the number of women coming into political office during that time as an example, but also was the power of the voice and the empowerment of the excuse me, of the feminine coming into their own and really speaking their truth. So, and their power in particular. So there's a layer here around this that is thinking, or that is reflecting back of what we did back then in 2018 into now 2026, and looking back to see how we can take it to a higher level. And even in these times, especially here in the US, but in other countries where there is a lot of voices that are trying to be silenced, that there is, disenfranchisement going on, and particularly with corporations exercising their power to, continue their greedy path. Particularly, I'm not talking about all corporations, but like the ones that you see the headlines of, the big ones that are people are becoming obscenely rich, hundreds of billions of dollars. It just to me is like this has just gone on way too far and too much. And so maybe this Venus in Scorpio gives kind of a little bit of a boost of power, particularly in those that may have, whether they have a challenging relationship with power, but being able to find the power within themselves, not just women, but those that may have repressed their power in some way, either through themselves or through conditions beyond their control. So this is an opportunity to kind of reconnect into personal power within who we are. Um, as soon as Venus moves into Scorpio, it's actually going to be in opposition with Chiron at 0 degrees Scorpio slash Taurus. So there might be something that Venus brings in with it on this journey through Scorpio that has to do with the wounds, that has to do with the traumas, the excuse me, the vulnerabilities within us. This is a chance to really bring that in, tap into that, and alchemize it into something of a strength for ourselves in the future. And then the fourth thing that happens is Uranus stations retrograde at 5:41 Gemini. So we're definitely in the deep foray in the sign of Gemini with Uranus. So this station retrograde point is important this year through 2028 due to the current Mini-Grand-trine. So just as has moved into Scorpio, we have the new moon. There's this really lot of energy here with all of this going on all at once. The alignment of Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune in the middle of this formation, even Neptune being in the middle, has only happened twice before in the last 2,000 years. So this is a really happening a lot in the background there, and a big part of what is going on here with humanity. Uranus and Gemini has already helped create a powerful cerebral buzz in humanity, but has also increased the polarization and contrarian energies about. At the same time, has also helped humanity to see the greater divide within, and perhaps waking up, along with Pluto and Aquarius, our senses more strongly and in unique ways. So during this retrograde point, it is a stillness moment that can encourage us to look at all the unusual novel events that have happened in our lives. It can also give us an opportunity to do things differently than we've done over the years, especially over the last 7 years when Uranus was in the sign of Taurus. So it's kind of breaking free from that hold and kind of going more into our imagination, the power to communicate and connect and uh, you know uh, pick up the transmissions that we need and share. And like this is like Gemini's the sign of the traveler with Sagittarius. It's the sign of the sort of the reporter and the investigator in that way. It's looking for the information and being able to transmit that information to all people around it. And so this is Uranus is perhaps going to help us have breakthroughs. So this can include what's going on with the internet and what we have is like YouTube influencers out there and various social media platforms, including Facebook and Substack and others So this is a chance for things to kind of move on into a new, perhaps a new direction, especially over these next several years. But this is, again, this is just a point to kind of reflect on how much has changed, and particularly over the last 7 to 8 years. So something to connect in with and in your own life, but also in the collective and see what's happening there. Then on the 15th, we have Venus-Pluto square. So this happens twice a year. And Chiron is still in opposition, still within the degrees of opposition to Venus, and certainly building up to a square with Pluto on its own. That'll begin in 2027. The other two squares that take place um, uh, with Venus is actually going to be interesting because Venus will actually have three squares instead of just our regular two. And this is coming in a series. This isn't happening just, 6 months apart, but this is happening in September, October, and December. So this means that the energy of the square will be longer lasting. And it's about the depth of transformation and the consciousness for the feminine. So I think Pluto is providing some additional layers of transformation for the feminine during this Venus and Scorpio transit and during its incarnation as it goes into a whole new synodic cycle beginning October 30th. So this is an opportunity for greater depth and transformation for all of us around our relationship with the feminine. Okay, then we have Chiron moving back into the sign of Aries. This, of course, is September 17th. I had just to make sure for everyone, I originally said September 19th, but it's actually the 17th. So Venus will move into back into Aries for 7 more months. So this will be the last time it will be in Aries, this period, for close to 50 years. Um, so this is giving humanity one last opportunity to work with the wounds of Aries, as Chiron is the shamanic healer, the wounded healer, the one that shows us where our wounds are, and it shows us where we can get our medicine for healing. The Aries wounds, everybody's got shadow, everybody's got wounds, every sign in the zodiac has it. So some of Aries' shadow is kind of going through life blindly and not, following a particular belief or mission without looking around, without seeing the whole picture, without stopping and seeing what debris is around it. So that's one. The other one is it relates to alpha energy, and there's certainly we've seen kind of this rise of particularly in the masculinity and toxic masculinity out there in the world with some, of course, some toxic femininity too, that is supporting that toxic masculinity as if they're a healthy version of what the masculine or what men should be. Because Aries has a strong relationship with the masculine in this way. So this is a chance for us to kind of review that and know that I do feel that we're going to move beyond that, even though there's always going to be a segment of society that is tuned into that space, but it's just become bigger than life right now, especially with who we have as president here in the United States. So that's something to connect into, and it's the alpha energy is not taken as the only truth out there or the true representative of humanity. It's just one of the ways that can be expressed through the masculine and feminine. And it's just one of the ways. And so there's many, many other ways. So it's not ignoring all the rest of the ways that the masculine and feminine can be expressed and all the shades in between, because there's countless shades in between the masculine and feminine and going into almost infinite expressions of that. So it also includes what is like the unnecessary aggression and violence, along with wars and bullying over everything in one's way. Again, this is not only Aries does this, but this is one of the shadows of Aries, especially when it's focused on something and it's just wanting and it grabs hold of it without, there's any kind of check and balance there. And especially if it has tendencies where it's encouraged to do things where it, leads to, say, or violence or any kind of other kinds of aggression that can be disruptive and in an unhealthy manner or in a toxic manner there. So something to think about as Chiron moves back into Aries. I've got a whole video about Chiron and Aries that I definitely encourage you to watch to learn more about that, and I'll link that up in the description below. Then on September 20th, excuse me, on September 20th, there's a Mars-Eris square at 2540 Cancer Aries. So this is adding to some of what we've talked about, because then Mars will square Chiron. I believe that happens on the 27th, just before it moves into the sign of Leo. But this square brings it together an intense, but potentially powerfully voiced liberating energies that greatly desire responsibility, safe space with heart, along with overcoming oppression and disenfranchisement. So it calls to mind the echo of previous interactions, going back to 2020, and especially in 2024, 2025, when Mars had a series of three hard aspects during those times. And in 2024, 2025, it was when it had its square. So that was during the end of 2024, during the general election period, and then going into the early months of 2025. So this may be something that we need to revisit in that sense. We're already kind of looking at that, especially in the United States, as we approach another election cycle at the midterms, 2 years removed from the general election. So this is, I think, it's going to be really, really interesting. I think that there's some things that still haven't been resolved or worked with in some way that since that time a couple of years ago, and even going back to 2020 when Mars and Eris were conjunct three times. So we need to look at those as a collective, human collective, and see what was happening there, and whether it's in the United States or in your part of the world. And then 2 days later, Kumbaya, the sun moves into Libra. Um, so this equinox, any kind of equinox or solstice, is always a special day. It's a really important day, not just astrologically, but when it comes to our relationship with the earth and the sky, it really is important to celebrate, to connect with, to tune into that it's more than just being busy, but maybe gathering together, particularly in Libra, it's gathering together with friends and others and family to enjoy not just what we've had in the season of Virgo with the harvest and the sacred patterns of the world, but this is gathering together and the resources that come from friendships, that come from community, that come from connections and building relationships with one another. So if we think we're going into a time of community, even though Aquarius tends to be associated with it, Libra as an air sign is one of the steps to get there and to bringing people together. Libras can be really good at that, and also really good at connecting into and being diplomatic and being a good arbiter of polarization where there's differences between people. So Libra's mind is always turning on how to meet the needs of others, including partners, friends, colleagues, and the community. And this particular sun in Libra is, I feel like, it's giving us a like a all sun all any equinox is a threshold, any solstice is a threshold. But I feel like this one is going to be really important because in the environment it's taking place in with the other planets, and as it's going to go into a space where it's going to be eventually it'll be opposite Neptune. There'll be a Neptune Sun opposition a few days after this, as Neptune goes into is still in Libra, and tying into the whole Mini-Grand-trine that's happening. That's part of the reason why a big part of the reason why the sun in Libra is very special. So then we have a full moon in Aries which happens on the 26th. So just 4 days after this. And this is actually, this is where you could see just the day before, Neptune and the Sun were in opposition. That would have been on the September 25th. But look at Neptune is still in this experience, and the Sun is anchoring it and helping to form a kite formation. So the Sun becomes the leading edge. It's kind of the thing that sorry, not the leading edge, the thing that's holding things down in a way that's grounding it into reality. While the Neptune Moon conjunction is the leading edge of where we're kind of headed, where the kite is wanting to go in that particular alignment there. So it's very celestially driven. It's like that sense of going up and out and being one with the cosmos, but yet at the same time, the sun is like, yes, but the people matter. Humanity matters. The earth matters. We're connecting into that wavelength there too. So that kite formation, I think, is going to be really important. September 25th. So from the 22nd really to the 26th, and we get all those alignments in there. And of course, during this time, a few days later, the sun will trine Uranus. It's already trined Pluto earlier that day. Actually, was that earlier? Yeah, it would have been very, very early morning that day, late at night, the night before here on the Pacific coast on the 25th. So right at the same time, because we can look at the sextile between Neptune and Pluto being really, really close at that point. All right, then the Sabian symbol of this full moon um, is two lovers are strolling through a secluded walk. So this could be interpreted as a chance at knowing yourself intimately through the outer other. It is a full moon that invites both an external relationship and one that is about our inner beloved as well. If we have a healthy mirror with another in a romantic relationship, we can also experience ourselves more fully. In addition, this can also be an escape as well, albeit temporarily. Are we under the spell of illusion through romance? I mean, we bring in Neptune in there. Is the Neptune showing up where we're out in on a secluded road, enjoying the environment around us and the peace and the romantic energy that could be there? Or is it balanced beyond what is seen on a secluded walk? So there's a certain mystery, there's a certain fog that is in place here that we don't truly know what's going on. But it can also lead to perhaps even spiritual awakening here with this particular Sabian symbol in combination, particularly in combination with Neptune. Then also, so the day after the full moon, Mars moves into Leo, and it will be in Leo for a couple of months, and then move back into Leo in 2027. So it stays in Leo and Virgo from September 27th all the way to July 14th. And this is because, like Venus, it's going to go through a retrograde period. That retrograde period doesn't start till January, but it's slowing down. Mars is slowing down. So late September is really the first month where you start to notice Mars slowing down. And then October, November, December, it's really, really slow. So this takes us through a sign that emphasizes self-love, expressing one's creative force and visionary capabilities with courage and boldness with the potential to lead. This is adding to um, some of the things I was talking about with Jupiter and Leo and what's going on with that. And the South Node is also in Leo. So it's showing us where perhaps leadership or past leadership is being let go of and new leadership is emerging. And I think Mars, once it goes into Leo, it's going to like really be turn up the volume of this. It's going to lead to action. And Mars will conjunct Jupiter in Leo in November, on November 15th. So something to keep in mind as things are going on. Also, just before Mars enters Leo on the 27th, it'll square Chiron. So in the sign of Cancer, while actually, yeah, Cancer before it goes into Leo, but Chiron will be in Taurus as that happens. Or sorry, in Aries while that happens. So we have the Cancer Aries square again. So again, some of the talking points I shared about with the wounds of humanity definitely being activated by this on the same day that just before Mars moves into Leo. And then Mercury moves into Scorpio, joining um, Venus. Now, what's interesting to the about this is that uh, Venus and Mercury do not have a conjunction during this time. I was looking this up and I didn't see where, at least not in September. I'll have to go back and look to see what day that actually happens. But Mercury's going to go through a retrograde period in the sign of Scorpio. Again, particularly during October and November. And at the same time that Venus is retrograde, Mercury will also be retrograde for about 3 weeks. So we want to take that into consideration and the relationship with power, empowerment, and disempowerment, and working with energy, working with our own personal magic and our will to create and manifest what we want. Mercury's going to, I think, help us do this, but it's also going to show us where that shadow is there too. So we've got that period as well. So yeah, Mercury will be retrograde between October 24th and November 13th. And then here's the chronology of the month. This is what we got. Actually, Chiron is in on the 17th, just as something I'll correct before posting the picture of this at a later time. But Chiron is not in Aries on the night. Well, it's in Aries on the 19th, but it moves in on the 17th, just as a note. But you can see here's September 10th. This is the big day with all these things happening. And it's rare that for something like this to happen, for four major events, two inner planets moving into a new sign, another planet going retrograde, and a new moon happening, or any kind of major moon phase. That is really rare. So just something to note. And then, of course, Mars and Leo down here just after the full moon. There's the Sun in Libra, the autumnal equinox here in the northern hemisphere, the vernal equinox in the southern, and more to come. So thank you all for being a part of this. I appreciate this. Like and subscribe if you do. I've got an online course that I'm building, basic astrology course. I'm really excited about sharing this with everybody. It'll be launching in November, and there'll be announcements about that coming up in the coming weeks. So stay tuned for that. I encourage you all to sign up for my newsletter, and if you also social media to learn when that will end up coming in. I don't have the pricing down yet, but there are a couple of free videos on my website that you can watch that two videos about. One is dealing with the introductory part, but also another free video about kind of getting your feet wet with sort of looking at the basics of astrology. All right. I wish you all well, and I wish you have an abundant and loving September, and to take care.